Welcome back. All right, so again, wearing a jersey of a team that's out of the playoffs that got a win tonight. I would have worn one of my McDavid jerseys, but I went with Ottawa because why not? And power rankings, of course, go up tonight, and there won't be a preview tonight because there's only 2 games tomorrow. Neither of those games are matinee games. And let's be honest, all 4 teams are missing the playoffs, so I'll integrate that into tomorrow's news video. And yeah, and then we have 9 games on Monday. And really at this point we're playing for playoff position. That's what we're playing for. All right, starting things off. The Islanders and the New Jersey Devils. So the Devils tonight, not much to play for. They played well at points in this game, but the Islanders a little more focused and some good luck too as well. It was Blackwood versus Sorokin. For the 8 earlier games, I put up the goalie matchups all the way through. Didn't on the last 4, because why not? Blackwood was sharp early on in this one. The shots were 4-2 for the Islanders at 8 minutes. Came out a little bit stronger than they have in games recently. The Islanders then get a power play. Blackwood denies Nelson. The Islanders would press with 5.5 minutes left. And in the last 2 minutes of the period, they do score. It's Eberle from Barzal and Komarov at 18:01. Sorokin then denied Wood, and Wood took that personally. But we go to the second period. We get an extended 4-on-4 early. We then get 1 minute and 4 seconds of a 4-on-3 for the Devils. They do not score, but Johnson scores from Tennyson and McLeod at 4:58. The Islanders would get a power play not too long after that. They do score on theirs. It's Nelson from Wallstrom and Leddy at 9 minutes. And then to add to the lead, Nelson scores again from Bailey and Beauvillier at 12:40. So after 2 periods, it's 3-1 in favor of the Islanders. Third period, Palmieri scores from Wallstrom and Pelech at 3 minutes and 32 seconds. So Wallstrom with a couple of helpers. That's nice. I mean, he gets a fair amount of goals, but it's nice to see him get a couple of assists. Palmieri on the board is nice as well. And then less than a minute later, Barzal scores from Komarov at 4:09. That made it 5-1. The Islanders would push at 6 minutes, but the Devils had a majority of the shots in that third period. They were ahead 8-3 in the shots with 8 minutes left. The Islanders only had 1 shot after that, but the most important thing was keep the lead and don't let anything get away from you, and they didn't. They win this one 5-1. They go to 32-17-6. They are still capable of moving up beyond where they are in the standings. New Jersey 19-29-7 is their record, and yeah, so for New Jersey, rough loss here. 3 stars in this one. All Islanders, no surprise. Nelson, Komarov, and Barzal. The shots 12-4 New York Islanders in the first, 11-7 Islanders in the second, 13-4 Devils in the third. Final shots 27-24 for the Islanders. Power plays, New Jersey 0-2. The Islanders 1-3. Hits 25-23 Islanders. Block shots 22-13 for New Jersey. Blackwood saves 22 out of 27. Sorokin saves 23 out of 24. And it'll be Varlamov in the playoffs. But it's nice to see Sorokin's numbers have been really good. So if they do decide to go with 2 different goaltenders at points in the playoffs, they should be okay. Because one thing I am wondering is, because the playoffs are starting middle of May and they want the Stanley Cup awarded by July 15th, we're probably going to see some back-to-backs. We're likely going to see teams needing 2 goaltenders in the playoffs. Think of it very similar to the way that the playoffs went last year, where there was a lot of games in a short period of time. This may happen again this year. So we'll see, but the Islanders obviously in a playoff spot and trying to make sure they can move their way up. So they still have some control over that. They have to get past Boston, but they will have an opportunity to perhaps end up doing that. Next up, Capitals. So the Caps at home against the Flyers. Flyers really give them trouble, don't they? And Alex Lyon might have been one of the best games he's played. Not only that, but Craig Anderson, for a goaltender that has sat basically on the shelf for most of the season, for a guy who's a number 3 at 39 years of age, pretty solid game tonight. So they were against each other. There was an early power play for the Caps. It becomes a 4-on-4. We then have 1 minute and 40 seconds of the Caps on a power play after the 4-on-4 is done, but everything's all killed off. Mantha had a chance, was stopped, and then Obe Kubel collided with Wilson. Wilson left, and he looked like he was in rough shape. He would return, but one storyline with the Capitals that we're going to be watching from here is injuries. This is a really beat-up team as we get set for the playoffs. Like a lot of big names that are pretty banged up and beat up. Second period, early Flyers power play. That is unsuccessful. The Flyers press it around the halfway mark. The Caps then get a power play in the second half, but Lyon absolutely keeping this tied when that was going on. And then there was a shorthanded chance for Farabee where he shot high. We go to the third period, still scoreless. Oshie not on the Caps bench to start, so he gets added to Ovechkin, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Karlsson, Samsonov, and of course Wilson, who was back in this game. He didn't look like he was 100% either. So while some of these are just precautionary and they're just a little banged up, we're just resting them, it has to be of concern if you're a Caps fan. Lawton would then score from Van Riemsdyk at 3:42. It was a nice fast break goal, bar down. Nice goal by Lawton. Caps try to answer. Things get kind of scrummy. The Caps come out of that with a power play. The Flyers had a 2-on-1. Or no, there was some 4-on-4 plays. The game gets scrappy after that. The Flyers had a 2-on-1. Anderson makes the save. Power play for the Flyers. That doesn't score. There was a late power play for the Caps. That becomes a 6-on-4. Schultz had an opportunity. That was stopped. Outside of the post as well during that Caps 6-on-4. With 58.5 seconds left, the Caps call a timeout. And whatever they called, it worked. Eller ties this from Mantha and Schultz at 19 minutes and 20 seconds during a 6-on-5. So things get scrummy at the horn, but we're going to overtime. In overtime, Caps controlled it early. Eller was robbed by Lyon. Anderson then absolutely denied Lawton as well. And eventually, Caps get this. Sherry scores from Dowd and Orlov at 4 minutes. Caps get a needed 2 points to win this one 2-1. They go to 35-15-5, sorry. And the Flyers 24-23-8 with the overtime loss. So they will finish above 500 or at 500. So that's positive, right? 3 stars, Sherry, Anderson, and Lyon. So both goaltenders get into the 3 stars, and Sherry with the overtime winner. Shots 13-8 Washington in the first, 12-6 Philadelphia in the second, 18-7 Washington in the third. In the overtime, 3-2 for Washington. Final shots 40-29 for the Caps. Power plays, Philadelphia 0 for 2, Washington 0 for 4. Hits 17-14 for Philadelphia. Block shots 16-14 Philadelphia. Lyon 38 saves on 40 shots. Anderson 28 saves on 29 shots. So yeah, pretty decent end result for Washington. But again, all those injuries, and that's part of the reason why it's such a close game, is because all those players are out. But you have to hope that these guys are all healthy and good to go for the playoffs. Sometimes it's just precautionary. Yeah, it could be. And sometimes it's not. All right. Tampa. So Tampa and Florida play again on Monday. The winner of that game will be the home ice advantage team for their round against each other. These teams really don't like one another. And this is what the first 2 rounds of the playoffs are going to look like. The first 2 rounds of the playoffs are going to be war. Vasilevsky versus Bobrovsky, and the Panthers wearing their reverse retros. One of the nicer reverse retros. And it dawned on me tonight that it feels like some of these teams maybe wore their reverse retros once. Like it really doesn't feel like they were worn that much at all this year by some teams. I mean, the Canucks did it 4 games in a row and then just never wore them again. So it's bizarre, isn't it? But I do believe, I've heard through the grapevine, is there are a few that may end up being alternates next year. I haven't heard anything, though, about a 31-team jersey thing again next year. So this reverse retro thing they did with all 31 teams, it doesn't sound like there's going to be another run that's similar to that. This is just a unique thing they did once. But we'll see, right? Maybe they'll announce it during the summer. Who knows? So Gudas fired one wide during this game. The shots were 7-2 for the Panthers at 8 minutes. They came out, they wanted this. They dominated physically, they dominated skill-wise. Wenberg scores from Forsling and Uyghur at 11:44, and it was an amazing shot by Wenberg, who was in for a big night. Bolts get a power play. That was a no. Things get scrummy at the Panthers' net, and then late in that period, there was a power play for the Panthers, and they would get a number of power plays. Tampa Bay had one. Second period, a shorthanded chance for Coleman was stopped. That power play was killed off. Panthers then go right back to the power play. And who scores the power play goal? It's Sam Bennett, continuing his amazing run with the Florida Panthers from Barkov and Huberdeau at 3:07. Panthers then tried to add to the lead. Tippett was denied from while he was trying to do that. And then Luke Schenn, he scores the goal to make it 2-1 from Gord and Goudreau at 4:52. And then the Bolts were pressing for the tie. So Tampa Bay was in this at this point. Power play for Tampa? Nope. So, yeah, that's their one power play right there. Tampa just had the one power play. Panthers get a power play after that. It also doesn't score. But then Wenberg scores from Vetrano at 12:54. And that was just after the power play ended, and it went in off Chernak's stick. So, it's not technically a power play goal. It's one of those ones that's not that long after a power play ends. Huberdeau then adds to the lead from Bennett at 14:53. Vetrano then had a fast break. He fired it wide. The Bolts would get a power play. I don't know why it says Tampa Bay only had one power play, because I tracked at least, 3? So, the official stats say one. I'm going to go ahead and say no. Third period, maybe they just gave all the power plays to Florida out of a sense of just that's the way it normally works. So, third period, full Tampa Bay power play to start the period. That was a no. Huberdeau had a fast break that nearly went. Panthers get a power play. That was a no. Lomberg almost makes it 5-1. Colton then tackled Tippett. Panthers would get a power play. And again, I watched that and I thought, that's the kind of thing that when people see that on the internet and they see that as a replay, they're going to be like, ah. Anyways, Wenberg then scored to get the hat trick from Tippett and Forsling at 13:38. So hat trick for Wenberg. Good on him. And these teams really hate each other. That's the whole thing that came out of this. These teams really don't like one another. Florida 36-14-5. Tampa Bay 36-13 or 36-16-3. And we've waited forever for a time where Florida and Tampa are both really good and they look like they're on a collision course and they both look like contenders. We're there. We've waited this long for a real battle of Florida, and we're here. 3 stars, Wenberg, Bennett, and Bobrovsky. Shots, 14-13 Florida in the first, 14-11 Tampa in the second, 10-2 Florida in the third. Final shots, 35-29 Florida. Hits, 38-34 for Florida. Block shots, 10-7 for Tampa. Vasilevsky saves 30 out of 35. I didn't think he looked that sharp, but I also thought Florida knew exactly where to shoot the puck. Bobrovsky, 28 saves on 29 shots. So we'll see if Florida wins that game again on Monday. And if they win it in a style like this, does everybody then going into the playoffs take Florida to win that series? That's the question I have, because the playoffs are a different beast, but still, this was quite an impressive game by Florida. This is a statement game, and we'll see if they can back that up on Monday. All right, next up, Detroit and Columbus both playing their last game of the year. And so it's the end of me listening to Mickey Redmond with his and his, geez, really, man. So I'm going to miss that. I really am. I hope that in the grand scheme of things and all these new networks coming in, I would love to see Mickey on a nationwide broadcast, even if he's just from home. Really, seriously. So early chance for the Wings, it was Pickard versus Kivlenix. Now it's weird because Bernier was the one that was listed, and then Pickard's in. So Vrana scores from Cholowski and Panik at 6 minutes and 40 seconds. It was the first of 2 assists for Cholowski. I spelled his name wrong here. Spelled it right here. Atkinson scores from Laine and Jones to tie it up at 10 minutes and 16 seconds. Somebody must have gone to Laine before the game and said, so it's our last game, huh? And you've got a contract negotiation coming up, huh? Because I thought Laine played really well. Second period, shots were 2-1 for the Wings at 4 minutes. The Wings then get a power play. They don't score on that, but they do get the lead back. De Keyser from Rasmussen and Svechnikov at 11:54. But again, Columbus answers each time. This time it's Bjorkstrand from Robinson and Gabriel Carlson at 13:15. So after 2 periods of play, it's 2-2 between teams fighting it out to see who's going to be in the basement of the division. Third period, Wings get a power play. During that power play, Columbus scores shorthanded. It's Robinson from Gerby at 6 minutes and 43 seconds. But during that same power play, Sam Gagner, he scores from Hronik and Juice at 8:04. And what was funny was Mickey called it. Mickey said, I want Gagner to go there, wait for it, and then he did. And Ken Daniels was like, so he listened to you. Yep, clearly he heard me. So yeah, Gagner listened to Mickey and gets a goal. So he knows his hockey. Roslovic then scored from Jones and Laine to restore the lead for Columbus at 14:45. Like I said, Laine, a couple of helpers tonight. But Filppula ties it up then from Cholowski and Vrana at 16:16. And Filppula finishes off the season in pretty decent fashion, I guess. We'll see how many of these players have played their last game with Detroit, if Filppula is one of them. But yeah, we go to overtime. Panik had a break, couldn't bury it during that break. Filppula then had a chance that was saved. And Darren Helm, for people who don't know, he's not allowed to get a goal. So he had an opportunity that can't go in the net. And then Domi would score the game winner from Bjorkstrand and Jones at 4:39. So Columbus wins this one 5-4 in overtime. For people who care, Detroit actually does finish ahead of Columbus in the standings. So going into the draft lottery, the odds are better for Columbus than for Detroit. Detroit finishes the season a respectable 19-27-10. Columbus 18-26-12. One of those numbers is a surprise in a good way, and one of those numbers is a surprise in a bad way. And of course, it was announced after the game on The Athletic that it sounds like Tortorella's stepping away, that he's not going to come back next year for Columbus, which might be the worst kept secret in the National Hockey League. So I'm not staying up and doing a video on it tonight. We'll discuss it in a news video tomorrow because there's no matinee games. I'm actually quite happy. 3 stars, Robinson, Domi, and Jones. Shots, 11-6 Columbus in the first, 11-10 Detroit in the second, 16-10 Detroit in the third. In the overtime, both teams had 4 shots. Final shots 37-36 in favor of Detroit. Power plays, Detroit had the only power play and they scored on it. Hits 20-11 Columbus. Block shots 10-8 Columbus. Pickard saved 31 out of 36. And Kivlenix saves 33 out of 37. And he gets himself the victory. So there you go. Now we're done board number 1. Board number 2 of 3. And we're up to Toronto and Montreal. And this is one of those games where, like, all right, if Montreal had won this with the other results that came in tonight, Montreal would have clinched a playoff spot. They clearly don't have any interest in clinching a playoff spot. So tomorrow, you've got a Flames game where, I mean, technically they're still alive. So if the Sens go into Calgary tomorrow and lose, Calgary's still alive. I don't know what else to say. And the Canucks are still alive. So it was Allen versus Campbell. And early chances went to the Habs, and they'd score. Kulak scores from Belzile at 3:34. The Habs then pressed at 6 minutes. They got a 2-on-1, which was defended well by Justin Hall. Power play then for the Habs. Really flat start for Toronto. Like, they were stuck on 3 shots for, it felt like, most of that period. And so coming out of that first period, it's 1-0 Montreal, and Toronto just doesn't look like they're that motivated. And of course, with a win tonight, could clinch themselves first place in the division. And then Suzuki makes it worse when he scores from Toffoli and Petrie at 31 seconds. That's what, an 8-game point streak now for Suzuki, I believe. But the Leafs, to their credit, fight back. Engvall scores from Spezza and Hall at 5:02. And the Leafs had some jump after that goal. The Habs get a power play, doesn't score. And then Nylander scores from Tavares and Muzzin at 13:36. Really great passing led to that goal. Kerfoot then tried to make it 3-2 right after that. That was saved. But Marner would make it 3-2 from Matthews at 16:33. And then in the last minute, the Leafs had a power play. So they're up 3-2 after 2. And we're going to the third period with them in control. Third period, Habs finish off the kill. They would get a power play. That power play generated no shots. The shots were 6-2 for the Leafs at 9 minutes. And just they kind of rolled from there. Montreal would pull the goalie with 2 minutes left. And then in the last minute, the Leafs get a power play. So that ends it. 3-2 is your final score. Toronto goes to 35-13-6. Montreal drops to 24-21-9. And that's the last playoff spot we don't know, is 4th place in the North. But we know, just win the game already. So yeah, 3 stars, Marner, Engvall, and Suzuki. Shots 7-4 Montreal in the first, 10 apiece in the second. Toronto 12-6 in the third. Final shots 26-23 for Toronto. Power plays 0-3 for Montreal, 0-2 for Toronto. Hits 32-27 Montreal. Block shots 14-9 for Toronto. Allen saves 23 out of 26. Campbell saves 21 out of 23. And if you saw how Freddie Anderson did for the Marlies today, Campbell's your starter for the playoffs is my guess. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Campbell's the starter for the playoffs. I know, crazy prediction, right? I think Campbell's going to be the starter. Next up, Ottawa. You know, again, this is an example of Ottawa just flat out winning games. And it's not fluky. And it's funny because, and I mentioned this their last game, that you will see teams who are bad, and then they'll win a couple of games, maybe by some luck or, you know, some good bounces here and there. And then that confidence grows, and you watch as the team matures. What we've witnessed over this season is the maturation of the Ottawa Senators. Expectations next year are going to be very high, and rightfully so. That division, the Atlantic Division, is going to be absolutely deadly, and I'm apologizing to the Sabres right now because, yeah, Detroit looks better. Tampa Bay's still going to be good. Florida's still going to be good. Toronto is still going to be a pretty darn good team. Montreal's always all over the place, so you just never know. But Ottawa's definitely getting better. It's gonna be a pretty fantastic division. So Gustafsson versus Hellebuck was your matchup. The shots were 3-1 for the Jets at 4 minutes. Gustafsson played very well right out of the gate. Power play for the Jets, that was a no. Scheifele ends up hitting a crossbar. Jets press at 8.5 minutes. They had all the opportunities, but then the second shot for the Sens goes in. It's Connor Brown with his 20th from Mete and Pinto at 10:13. Great season for Connor Brown. And then Stützle scores from Zub at 11:29. Stützle's gone cold until tonight. And that was the third shot on net for Ottawa. So back-to-back shots go in. Jets then go back to the power play. And in that first period, they had 3 posts, including the one for Scheifele. 3 posts for the Jets, just not working in their favor. Second period, first minute. Appleton scores from Scheifele at 55 seconds. Great pass by Scheifele. Great play. And that's kind of the highlight if you're a Jets fan tonight. Dadonov then had a chance to deflect over the net. Connor had a chance that was saved. Kyle Connor's absolutely just cursed in the second half of the season. Jets pressed in the last minute. Connor was robbed because, of course, he was. But coming out of the second period, it's 2-1 in favor of Ottawa. And, yeah, third period shots were only 1-1 at 4 minutes, meaning Ottawa's playing a very good road game. And then Stützle scores his second of the game from Connor Brown and Pinto at 5:10. So Brown with a goal and an assist to that stage. And it was a great pass by Brown and a great goal by Stützle as he's really getting back into the swing of things. It's late in the season, but sure. There was a late power play then for the Sens. It's unsuccessful. And then Scheifele scores from Wheeler at 19:07. So last minute of the game, they make it a 1-goal game. With 32.6 seconds left, however, the Sens get a power play. So the Jets have to pull the goalie just to go 5-on-5. That gives Stützle the hat trick from Connor Brown at 19:54. And the Sens win this 4-2. They go to 22-27-5. Very respectable record. And Winnipeg drops to 28-22-3. And again, if you don't have alarm bells going off for how Winnipeg's been playing over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I don't know what else to tell you. 3 stars in this one. Stützle, Gustafsson, and Scheifele. Shots 10-5 Winnipeg in the first, 8-7 Winnipeg in the second. Both teams had 11 shots in the third. Final shots 29-23 for Winnipeg. Power plays 1 for 2 for Ottawa, 0 for 2 for Winnipeg. Hits 28-16 for Winnipeg. Block shots 18 apiece. Gustafsson saves 27 out of 29. Hellebuck saves 19 out of 22. So again, Winnipeg's not getting those incredible nights with Hellebuck. They're getting decent nights with Hellebuck, but it's all fallen for them. And now the Sens, give them an 82-game schedule in this division, they'd probably push their way into a playoff spot. I think they're only 8 points back now of Montreal. There's not enough games for them to catch up. All right, next up, Carolina. So I said going into today, and I'm not going to try to pretend that Carolina intentionally loses, but Carolina had some say in who they'd play. If they lost one of the games against Nashville, they then play Nashville in the playoffs. Carolina's going to play Nashville in the playoffs. Dallas is out. And I know that the Dallas fans hear me talking about it for the last few weeks. You're like, he's not really a Dallas fan. He doesn't want them in the playoffs. I just, the 14 overtime and shootout loss points are just, in my eyes, is just not, I don't like it. I would rather see a team that legitimately has won more than half of their games in the playoffs. And, yeah, I mean, did Carolina blow it tonight? No. Carolina, the effort was there. I thought it was just that Nashville wanted it more. So it was Nedeljkovic versus Saros. Preds get the early chances. There was a power play for Nashville as well. It doesn't score. There was another power play for the Predators. Solid penalty kill by the Canes and Nedeljkovic, who played very well tonight as well. Canes then get a power play. There was a crossbar for the Canes just as the power play came to an end. So they were a crossbar away from making it 1-0. Saros, highlight reel saves in that second half. A lot of highlight reel saves for Saros. He's one of the 3 stars for good reason. The Canes pressed with 4 minutes left. But we go to the second period, still scoreless. In the second period, Preds get close at 2 minutes. Then there's a power play in their favor shortly after that. They hit a post, and then the rebound was saved by Nedeljkovic. Canes were pressing at the halfway mark. That was after the Preds had pressed themselves after that power play. And a good back and forth action. Both teams skilled, some good speed out there. Definitely from the Canes. Their speed's incredible. Ekholm then defended a chance for Geekie. And then Cunnin opens the scoring from Granlund at 12 minutes and 27 seconds. So that made it 1-0. And the crowd went absolutely insane. Things then got kind of scrummy, as now we're looking at a preview of a first-round matchup. And it's like, this is where players start sending kind of a message, right? This is where the message is. This is where I understand it. When you're seeing teams against each other going to play in the playoffs, I understand sending a bit of a message and saying, all right, you guys aren't going to push this around. That's not going to happen. We're on to you. Predators press with 3 minutes left. Saros then denied Geekie. Again, good back and forth action. We go to the third period. Svechnikov gets a good chance in the first minute, which won't go. And if Saros sees it, he saves it. It's basically the story from tonight. He can see it. He's going to save it. Preds were hitting a lot, and some big hits for Nashville as well. So even though the number of hits they throw isn't tremendously high, when they threw them, they were impactful. Like, this team is again, it just felt like all night this was about sending a message to their first-round opponents. Tolvanen then was passing when he should have been shooting. For Ellie, there's some confidence issues there, but they've got time to work on him. Cunnin then scores the second of the game from Granlund and Ellis at 7:41. But to Carolina's credit, they answer. Morgan Geekie gets a goal from Lawrence and McCormick at 9:07, and that was during a delayed penalty. So they get back on the board. Then there was a post for Ekholm after that. Aho was denied from in close by Saros. Canes were getting way too many chances in that second half. And I'm not just talking about like a lot of shots, but really prime scoring opportunities. Goaltender gets pulled with 2 minutes left. That allows Eric Haula to hit the empty net from Yarncroke at 18:57. And with that, Nashville wins, clinches themselves a playoff spot, 3-1 win. They go to 30-23-2. Carolina drops to 36-11-8, and they'll meet Nashville in the first round. 3 stars, Cunnin, Saros, and Granlund. Shots, 9-7 Nashville in the first, 11-8 Nashville in the second, 10-7 Nashville in the third. Overall, 30-22 for Nashville. Power plays, 0-for-1 for Carolina, 0-for-3 for Nashville. Hits, 23-14 for Nashville. Block shots, 16-6 for Nashville. Do you get the feeling that Nashville really wanted this game? Because they out-hit them, they outshot them, they out-blocked them. They took care of what they had to. Nedeljkovic saves 27 out of 29 at one end, and Saros saves 21 out of 22 at the other. Cannot wait for the playoffs to start. These series are going to be so hotly contested, it's going to be great. The amount of familiarity these teams have with each other, the amount of anger these teams have with each other, it's going to make for some intense hockey. Anaheim. The Ducks have been competitive, and that's really all you can ask for from them at this point in time. Is for them to be competitive, for the effort to be there. Tonight, of course, Ryan Miller making the start, the last game of the year for the Anaheim Ducks. They did not choose to put Backes in the lineup, which kind of surprises me. Because there's ties to Minnesota with Backes, not in his NHL career, but in terms of where he's lived and all that. So I'm a little bit surprised they didn't put him in the lineup for a game that doesn't really mean anything for the Ducks. But it was Miller versus Talbot in this one. The Wild were getting the early turnovers. The shots were in their favor at 6.5 minutes, 3-1. Shots evened up at around the halfway mark, and Anaheim again showing that they can steal a game if they get the chance. Raquel scores from Mahura and Manson at 12:02. I really hope Rickard Raquel has a good year next year. I've been waiting on it. I've been waiting on him to get back to his 30-goal form. I don't know that I have any faith in it because he gets hurt so much and he's inconsistent goal scoring wise, but it would be nice to see. Wild then get a 4-minute power play, and they almost didn't score on it at all. Just as it's near its completion, Spurgeon scores from Kaprizov and Fiala at 16:32. So that ties up the game after the first period. Second period, shots were 3-1 for the Wild at 5 minutes. So again, they start out quickly. The power play is for the Wild, and it's a no. So the first power play was in their favor, and they don't get a goal. Shots were 3-3 with 7 minutes left. So they didn't get a shot during that power play, and it was kind of slow moving, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. Hartman scores from Kaprizov and Zuccarello at 15:05, and then Bonino scores from Sturm at 15:56. So a period that only featured 10 shots had 2 goals within 51 seconds of each other. Then there was a late power play for Minnesota. Minnesota's power play is starting to become concerning again, isn't it? It started to cool down. It was ice cold, worst in the league, and then it was absolutely red hot. And now it's concerning. So we go to the third period with it 3-1. And at 2:18, Zegras, proving that time he spent in the AHL was fantastic for him. He wires one. Comtois and Drysdale with the assists at 2 minutes and 18 seconds. So Drysdale gets on the board. Drysdale's had baptism by fire. His numbers have been kind of ugly, but in this situation he's been put in, I wouldn't read too much into them. I know people will, but I wouldn't. Shots were 2-0 for the Ducks at 5 minutes. So Minnesota comes out kind of sleepwalking a little bit early on here. Power play then for the Ducks. That was a no. Kaprizov fires one high. The Wild were pressing at 9 minutes. There was a near miss for Zuccarello. That line, every time that's on the ice, is just electric. Then there's 2 minutes of 4-on-4. And during that 4-on-4, like, Kaprizov has this whole beast mode thing that he does in games. And yeah, it's impressive to watch. He is so strong on the puck. He is much stronger on the puck than you would think he is by looking at his stature, but he's got just excellent skill and strength here. Goalie pull in the final 2 minutes. Rask would miss the empty net. And I put that on the board like, okay, that seems like it might be important, and it is. Because Comtois scores from Raquel and Terry at 19:34 to tie it up and force overtime. So Minnesota with a point, Anaheim with a point. In the overtime, Wild controlled most of the first 90 seconds of it. Talbot then stopped a chance from Drysdale, but Minnesota would score. It's Rask from Dumba and Zuccarello at 2:46. And then what was nice was that they win this one 4-3 in overtime, and they had a handshake line for Ryan Miller. The sportsmanship stuff in the game is what I really like to see in something like this, where players for the other team recognize something that the player on their opposition did. That they go, okay, Ryan Miller's rounding out his career. We should all shake hands with him and wish him the best. And it was great. It was really great to see. Marcus Foligno, in particular, went in and embraced him and said something to him. So you could see Miller was emotional, choked up after the game, and probably would have preferred to go out with a victory. But, Minnesota wins this 4-3 in overtime. They go to 35-14-5. Anaheim drops to 17-30-9. 3 stars, Rask, Kaprizov, and Miller. Ryan Miller given the 3rd star in his final game. Shots, 12-5 Minnesota in the first, 7-3 Minnesota in the second, 12-4 in favor of Anaheim in the third. Minnesota was sleepwalking. But in overtime, both teams had 2 shots, and the winner was shot by the Minnesota Wild. They outshoot Anaheim 25-22 in the game. Anaheim 0-for-1 on the power play. Minnesota 1-for-4. Hits 6-5 for Minnesota. Not a heavy hitting game. Block shots 14-7 for Minnesota. Miller 21 saves on 25 shots. Talbot saves 19 out of 22. And happy retirement to Ryan Miller. Great career. There will be a career video done on him. When the season comes to an end, that's where all the career videos start to really line up. And I have time for them. I don't have any problem with finding time for them. So, yeah, it frees up a lot of my day. And that's when I start putting boards together the night before. So I'll do all my boards up at night. And then the next morning, I roll through those videos. And then the rest of the day is kind of open. That's how the off season works. The off season. During the playoffs, it's a little bit busier, but not as busy as tonight. All right, let's move on to the next and last board. All right, so this is the thing. If Montreal had won tonight, Vancouver would be out of their misery. But they're not. Mathematically, they're still alive. Mathematically. But again, tonight, I'm impressed with their work ethic. I'm impressed with the fact that they, even with all the games they've been playing, they're still managing to put up some shots. It feels like the shots are evening up now in these games a little more than they were, say, a week and a half ago. So, first period, McDavid scores from Bear and Nurse at 45 seconds. That's point number 97 for McDavid. And the zone battle goes to the Oilers that first 5 minutes. The shots were 4-1 in their favor. They were controlling the game early. Smith mishandled the puck, but the Canucks could not bury it when he mishandled it behind his net. Power play for the Canucks, it's unsuccessful. And every time the Oilers get the puck, it's clear they're looking for 97. I swear, even when he's on the bench, they just fling it at him. What are you doing? Stop hitting me with the puck. So second period, there was a bouncing puck at 1 minute and 30 seconds. It somehow stays out of the Oilers' net. The Canucks came out pretty strong to start the period. The Canucks scored, but it's offside, so no goal. Pressed by the Canucks at 5 minutes. Unsuccessful. Puck goes the other way. Puljujarvi would score from McDavid and Barrie at 6:52. That's point number 98. The Canucks tried to answer. They would get a power play. It becomes a 4-on-4. And JT Miller gets the Canucks on the board at 9 minutes and 12 seconds. And then Boyd scores from VC at 11 minutes and 40 seconds. So two former Maple Leafs combine. And that's Boyd's first as a Canuck. So there you go. I think Boyd's played well enough to earn a return next year. The thing is, he'd be replacing Beagle. I don't know how any of this is going to work. I have no idea how any of this is going to work in the offseason. So then we get a power play for the Oilers, and it happens. Draisaitl gets the goal for his 500th career point from Neal and McDavid at 12:27. It was a great pass by James Neal, but that also means 99 points just in 2021 for McDavid. I had to make sure I put career behind Draisaitl, so it didn't look like Draisaitl has 500 points this season. And it's interesting because last year, of course, there was the debate about, well, is Draisaitl better than McDavid? I haven't heard that at all this year. I think that debate is just gone. Besser then had a chance that was stopped. Graovac, though, he scores from Haralick and Hughes at 14:20. So if you're looking for depth guys to get goals from the Canucks, tonight was a good night that way. The Canucks then get a power play. That was a no. Their power play had a lot of opportunities. It just wasn't going to work. There was a late Oilers power play, becomes a 5-on-3. Demko would deny McDavid, but it's a 5-on-3, so it's going to go in, and it does. It's Draisaitl with the second of the game. I think that's his 30th of the year from McDavid and Nurse in 1906. So Connor McDavid gets his 100th point in 53 games, and this is what we will be discussing probably until next year, and rightfully so. That is the smallest number of games anybody's needed to get 100 points since 95-96. And you're getting into guys like Lemieux, Yager, Gretzky. Like, you're getting into that territory now with McDavid. So we go to the third period with it 4-3. The Canucks get a power play, doesn't score. The shots were only 2-1 for the Oilers at 7.5 minutes. The Canucks go back to the power play. They had opportunities, but it just wasn't going to go. Mike Smith remembered, oh, it's the Canucks, I can beat them. And the goalie pull doesn't end up bringing forth any goals for Vancouver or Edmonton. So the Oilers go to 33-18-2. Canucks drop to 20-26-3. And I would hope that going forward, the Oilers can't finish higher than second. They can't finish lower than second. McDavid's now hit the 100-point mark. Rest him up. Rest him up going to the playoffs. I would expect a dramatic drop in his ice time going forward, I would think. He's your first star tonight. Draisaitl's second star. Nurse's third star. Shots in this one were 12-5 Edmonton in the first, 19-12 Edmonton in the second, 8-3 Vancouver in the third. Final shots 34-25 for Edmonton. Power plays Vancouver 0 for 5, Edmonton 2 for 4. Hits 18-13 Edmonton. Block shots 17-15 Vancouver. Demko 30 saves on 34 shots. Smith saves 22 out of 25. And there you go. They still have one more game left against one another, but Edmonton's other two games are against Montreal. So, we'll see what happens, right? I mean, technically, Vancouver's not technically gone, but yeah. Anyway, next up, St. Louis. St. Louis played like they didn't have anything to play for tonight, which they don't, but they do. Like, if you beat Vegas, you might make it so that Vegas isn't the team you're meeting in the first round, but do you want to play Vegas? We'll continue that discussion later. Gold jerseys and gray helmets. And a great sadness from me. Put the gold jerseys on with the gold helmets. Put the gray jerseys with the gray helmets. It's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's driving me insane. So Vegas had the only shot of the game at 5 minutes. In fact, halfway through the period, St. Louis still didn't have a shot. Smith then scores from Carrier and Colasar at 12:26. The Blues would get a power play, which leads to a shorthanded goal for Vegas. It's Stevenson from Pietrangelo at 13:32, and then Vegas kills off the rest of the power play. Last minute, there was a press by the Blues. Things get kind of scrummy at the horn. We're going to the second period. Tuck had a fast break. Husso made the save there. Martinez then defended a chance for Thomas. Blues not really getting chances in this game. This was almost all Vegas, really, through that first 40 minutes especially. Husso stops Tuck again. Pressed by Vegas at 8.5 minutes. Some good shot blocks going on there for St. Louis. Vegas gets a power play. It is unsuccessful. Blues were being outshot by about 4-1 in the game to that point. That's not a recipe for success. Shen then had a break. Fleury makes the save. We get 2 minutes of 4-on-4 with a minute and a half left. And not long into that, Parayko gets a goal at 19:23. And it was on a steal, and it was a great shot by Parayko. And it reminds you that Parayko is known for his defense. He can score. He has some offensive instincts. They don't show up that often in game. Third period with it 2-1 now in favor of Vegas. There's 2 minutes of 4-on-4 again. Theodore nearly puts one in as this time on the 4-on-4. Vegas pushed the play. Wallman takes a penalty. Vegas gets a power play, and they score on the power play. And it's Riley Smith scoring a second of the game from Martinez and Pietrangelo at 4:11. So Pietrangelo with a couple of helpers. Vegas would get another power play. That was unsuccessful. They would get a fourth power play with 8:36 left. But then it becomes a 4-on-4. Blues were pressing during that 4-on-4. And then with 5:15 left, the Blues get a power play. During that power play, they get 3 shots. None of them end up in the back of the net. O'Reilly then missed a wide open net. They pass it over to him. There's a gaping net there, and he can't put it in. So they pull the goalie in the final 2 minutes down by 2. And that allows Riley Smith to get the hat trick with the empty netter at 19 minutes and 12 seconds. Vegas wins this one 4-1. And for the most part, they made it look pretty easy. They go to 39-13-2. St. Louis drops to 24-20-9. And if this is your first round matchup, it may not go beyond 4 games if you look at tonight's game. But again, St. Louis didn't really have anything to play for unless they want to avoid Vegas. Anyways, 3 stars in this one: Smith, Stevenson, and Martinez. Shots were 10-3 Vegas in the first, 11-5 Vegas in the second, 13-8 St. Louis in the third. Final shots 29-21 for Vegas. Power plays 0-3 for St. Louis, 1-4 for Vegas. Hits 42-25 for St. Louis. Block shots 18-17 for St. Louis. Husso saves 25 out of 28. Fleury saves 20 out of 21. And he moves 2 wins clear now of Luongo. And there's already the discussion of, so how long would you have to play to catch Patrick Waugh? And the answer is, I would think 2 more seasons. He would probably be able to catch Patrick Waugh if he is a starter, or if he's at least splitting starts on a really good team where he can get a bunch of wins. He would threaten to catch Patrick Waugh, I'll say, in 2 years. Got to be 82 game schedules, and again, he's got to win a lot. So it's dicey, but if he stays 3 more years, he probably gets it. And I wouldn't be surprised if he stays 3 more years. I really wouldn't. All right, next up, Colorado. I'll say this much for the Abs: they're winning games. They're not overly convincing in the wins, but they're winning games. And for LA, they're frustratingly close to being a good team. And it kind of reminds me how last year ended, except last year LA was winning these games. They won 9 of their last 11. They were wearing their silver jerseys, which, based on the fact that these jerseys have been on sale most of the year, they're silver, like the 50th anniversary throwbacks. I think they're going to retire these jerseys at the end of this year. I don't think they're going to have them again next year. And anytime a jersey gets retired, like for instance the Jets, their blue third that they've had, I think that one's going to get retired as well. That one's been on sale most of the year. Usually means there's a new one coming. So keep your eyes open. When you hear the team's retiring a jersey, right? It's sort of like when the Coyotes are wearing the Kachina a lot, you know they want to just end up changing the Kachina. So, yeah. Early Abs shot nearly goes in. The shots were 4-1 for the Abs at 4 minutes. They were overwhelming the Kings again. And then Taves scores from Burakovsky and Comfort at 4:46. The Abs would then get a power play. They score on it. It's Makar from Rantanen and Burakovsky at 10 minutes and 31 seconds. But the Kings don't go away. Sean Walker scores at 13:58. So they don't go away. The Kings then get a power play. That was a no. The Kings pressed later on, but that lead does hold through that first period. Second period, Rantanen and Anderson had a hugfest. Mikey Anderson, not Leish Anderson, not Jared Anderson-Dolan, Mikey Anderson. One of the many Andersons. So, yeah, they had something going. There was some chirping going on during this game, too. I don't know. Maybe it's just from playing each other so much. Shots were 3-2 for the Kings at 9 minutes, but when they got their chance, and the funny thing is the announcers had just said the game was kind of boring without saying it was boring. Taves scores from Makar and Belmar at 9:45, so that makes it 3-1. Doughty then with a turnover nearly ends up being 4-1 in his net. Avs get a power play. This is right around where Brendan Lemieux, and Landeskog were kind of chirping. Landeskog was chirping him from the bench, and Lemieux wasn't laughing, but Landeskog was. Landeskog was having a good time with it. So I would love to know what Landeskog said to Lemieux there. I would. I think that would actually be kind of funny. Third period, we get a fast start, a lot of continuous action. Honestly, this is, again, we talked about it, it's where they're playing a game, and you think they've got the ice rented by the hour, and they need to get out before they end up having to pay another $250. Kings get a power play. Kupari would score his first NHL goal from Anderson. That's Lias Anderson, not Mikey Anderson, not Jared Anderson-Dolan, and Sean Walker at 5:21. So that makes it 3-2. So again, the Avs don't bury the Kings very well. They didn't tonight. Burakovsky then nearly answers. The Avs get a power play. Peterson denied Newhook his first of his career. More play without a whistle. In fact, the refs were just letting them play. There was some clear, I think it was a cross-check thrown by Landeskog. No, Rantanen, I think, got away with a cross-check, and then there was another trip I saw, and I'm like, okay, so we're just not calling anything at all. And there was no whistles. Like, I don't know if anything was offside, but I'm betting one of them was probably offside at some point. The goalie gets pulled in the final 2 minutes. The second half of the period didn't have a whistle until 7.2 seconds left. So that means they lost 2 commercial breaks as well. So it's one of those things that I see and I think, okay, so they just lost a couple commercial breaks, because it's not like with 7 seconds left they're going to cram 4 minutes of commercials in there. They're just not going to. I was nervous they might cram in 2 minutes, but they didn't. So then with that 7.2 seconds left, the Kings call a timeout. And I don't know what you're going to decide to do with 7 seconds left, but it's not going to work. Colorado holds on. They win this one 3-2. They go to 36-14-5. LA's 21-26-6. 3 stars, Taves, Makar, and Kupari with his first NHL goal. Shots 12-6 Colorado in the first, 14-5 Colorado in the second. Only 7-4 in favor of LA in the third, because who's taking shots? They're just skating back and forth, and it was so much continuous action. It was actually kind of fun. Power plays 1 for 3 for Colorado, 0 for 2 for LA. Hits 30-23 for Colorado. Blocked shots 13-12 for Colorado. Johansson saves 16 out of 18 for Colorado, and Peterson 27 saves on 30 shots. So Johansson gets another win. He's got to be really happy he went to Colorado, because now he's getting a bunch of wins. So that has to make him happy. All right, last game of the night. Proving that even though this game did not technically mean anything to the standings, I'm still taking notes. I'm still watching. We get 2 minutes of 4-on-4. Dvorak scores. He scores from Kessel and Ekman Larson at 3:32. That's point number 902 for Kessel. Balcers would answer, though, from Himilevsky and Gambrell at 6:44. So 1-1 tie. And Chekovich, nearly gets his first NHL goal. It's Chekovich, because I watched the San Jose announcers tonight. So Chekovich nearly got his first. It wasn't going to happen tonight. The Sharks, the shots were 13-5 in their favor 9 minutes into this game. 9 minutes, 13 shots. Ness, in his first game all year, and I mean first game, like he didn't play in the AHL, he's been on the taxi squad, and for tonight's game, he was one of the alternate captains. I don't know that I've ever seen that, where a guy hasn't been in the lineup all year, and then he goes into the lineup and you go, here, we're going to give you a letter. That's weird, right? Like, I'm not arguing it. You want to give Ness a letter, that's fine, but it just seemed kind of weird to me that he had an alternate captain on his jersey. And where they had it, it looked like they just kind of crammed it on there last second. Oh, yeah, here. Don't sneeze too much, because it's on there with Velcro. So, yeah. Coyotes then get a power play. Dvorak would score during the power play from Fisher and Kessel at 11:36. So that's point number 903 for Kessel. He does very well against San Jose. I don't know what it is, but he does. LeBanc would answer, though, at 15:28. So it's 2-2. Coyotes would go back to the power play. That was a no. The Sharks get a power play. That also is a no, but it's 2-2 after one. Second period. Coyotes killed off the remainder of that Sharks penalty, and then Meyer with an absolutely gorgeous goal from LeBanc at 5:26. And I guarantee you San Jose fans are thinking, man, we need more of that from Meyer next year. Yannick, though, answers from Fisher less than a minute later at 6 minutes and 20 seconds. So Yannick, 2 goals in 2 games. Clearly a 50-goal scorer, right? Anyway. Coyotes then press at the half. You know, one thing you always have to take with a grain of salt is when these kids come in at the end of the year and they do produce, that it can lead to elevated expectation going into next season, and vice versa, where when a player comes in and they don't produce, that people go, well, he's not going to be very good then. And so, and I've even had to temper that myself. Over the last 5 years on the channel, I've had to kind of smack myself a couple of times for writing off somebody or praising somebody that doesn't end up turning out based on a smaller sample size. But yeah, the Coyotes pressed at the half. Then there's a press by the Sharks in the final 4 minutes. Melnichuk was passing the test so far. Melnichuk was in net for the Sharks. And yeah, I mean, you know, you've got Kozanosh, you've got Melnichuk. You're trying to figure out the goaltending future of San Jose and how this is going to work. Yeah, throw them in. Third period, the shots were 3-2 for the Sharks. 6 minutes into it, they would get a power play. That does not score. The shots were 9-3 in favor of the Sharks with 6.5 minutes left. They came out very well in this period. Fisher then broke up a chance for Vlasic, and then it's Connor Garland who puts the Arizona Coyotes into the lead from Goligoski and Chychrun at 16:07. And I thought, okay, that's it. It's done. Arizona wins. That's it. The Sharks are done. The Sharks tried to answer. They pull the goalie with a minute and 40 seconds left, and then Barabanov scores from Hurdle and Kane at 19 minutes and 11 seconds. It was a great three-way pass that set up that goal. So, yeah, nice. And so we go to overtime. In overtime, Hill caught an opportunity from Carlson. That was the only shot that San Jose had in the overtime. And Kessel gets the goal at 2 minutes and 30 seconds because, of course, it's Phil the Thrill. So that's point number, 904. So all he needs is 96 points next year, and he's got 1,000. Simple. The Coyotes with the win go to 24, 26, and 6 to finish their season. San Jose drops to 21, 27, and 7 in overtime. 5-4 loss. Their season's not done. They have 1 game left. But yeah, 3 stars: Kessel, Dvorak, and LeBanc. Shots 19-8 San Jose in the first, 17-14 Arizona in the second, 14-4 San Jose in the third. In the overtime, 3-1 Arizona. Shots 48-32. So there were 80 shots in this game. Power plays: Arizona 1 for 2, San Jose 0 for 2. Hits 13-12 Arizona. Not a lot of hitting. And blocks 8-6 for Arizona. Hill saves 44 out of 48. Really good game. I love Aiden Hill. He's a good goaltender. And Melnichuk, 27 saves on 32 shots. Yeah, the numbers weren't that great at the end of the night, but I think there's enough there that we'll see what San Jose does next year. What they do with their goaltending could very well decide whether this is going to be a longer-term thing, or maybe they can bounce back next year. All right. That is the longest review I'm going to do until October. That's it. We have 9 games on Monday. That's the next longer review, and that'll be the last longer review of the year. And because in the playoffs, of course, I'm going to be reviewing all the games separately. So looking forward to doing that. I started that last year. It worked out pretty well. And even though the games will be overlapping this year, I think I can still do that. I've been testing that out with regular season games. I think I can still do that. So, yeah, there you go. Let me know your thoughts regarding these games and these results in the comment section below. If you're a Nashville fan, how do you feel about your chances against Carolina? If you're a Carolina fan, how do you feel about playing against Nashville? I've already got boards started for the 2 Central Division matchups. And yeah, so I'm all set. I'm all set for playoffs. Pretty darn quick here. But let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And of course, the power rankings are next.